For those who have gone through the experience of being subjected to a smear campaign or humiliation rituals, cyberbullying, gang stalking, all of that fun stuff, you will relate to the fact that at the heart of it is a lot of pain that comes from the betrayal of those who are involved. Because more often than not, those involved are people that we cared about or trusted. It could be our family, it could be coworkers, it could be church members, it could be a community that we served and were part of and did much good in. And so there's many layers of betrayal when you're attacked at that magnitude to really process and come to terms with that pain and just trying to understand, and the confusion and the heartache as you heal through and mourn the loss of certain people in your life that chose to do this to you. And often we find ourselves subjected to these smear campaigns or gang stalking or things like that because someone at the root of it initiated and gathered a faction of other bullies to be part of it. And generally it's based upon, lies, false narratives, a whole fabricated new story about who we are, our character, our lifestyle is essentially rewritten so that any of our goodness, our good qualities, our good deeds are no longer in existence according to this new narrative, so that it becomes justified to attack the person that's at the center of the smear campaign or the gang stalking. And obviously, there's a multitude of reasons why these things occur. It could be as simple as, mean girl envy or workplace jealousy, or, you're something special. If you have many people that feel like they need to attack you, there obviously is something special about you. Some of us go through this for the purpose of justifying a theft. For me, one day I was living a normal life, and then the next day, everyone from every direction was attacking me and spreading rumors about me and rewriting my life story. And it was really confusing to figure out what was going on. But at the heart of it, the intent was to justify and make up a new story about my capabilities and my character so they could get away with manipulating the system and stealing what was left to me. And that was incredibly painful to not only go through, all this stalking and hacking and violations of privacy and, all these horrendous lies being told about me, but then to have to accept the fact that these are people that I loved that are doing this to me, or maybe even people I've never even met, and that they would be willing to destroy another person, to destroy someone else's life and reputation, to do physical harm to them, all for the purpose of money or simply preventing me from having what was meant for me from my passed on loved one. And so to process that many layers and that depth of pain, healing has become my top priority. That's what I prioritize in my life. And to do that, I really focus on maintaining a strong sense of self-worth, self-love. I've learned to not rely upon the opinions or the validation of others for how I feel about myself. I really build that within and acknowledge my personal accomplishments each day, even if they're small. Every healthy choice you make, every good decision you make, to really give yourself credit for in this season that can be so lonely. And there's such a lack of support and people that can understand what you're even going through. It can be very isolating. And so that self-love and processing and healing is so key as you go through it. And one of the things that has been helpful to me and may be helpful to you is I spend time going on family history sites and learning about my passed on loved ones, my ancestors. And they may have been loved ones that I knew in this life or didn't know, but I find value in learning about their life stories and their incredible hardships and what they overcame. Connecting and identifying with this ancestor that has this talent that I have, or this quirky habit that I have, and learning to love these people that are in my family tree. You know, their blood runs through me just as your ancestors do with you. And I can feel their angelic presence and their love for me. And in situations that have been very dangerous, that I narrowly escaped, I feel that those loved ones, those past and loved ones, were watching over me, were providing angelic help in many situations that should have been to my detriment. And so maybe you'll find healing in that, in doing the same as we go through our own personal Job season. You know, in the story of Job, Job lost everything. And, you know, in one day he received 4 reports where everything he valued was wiped away. You know, his stability, his livelihood, his animals, his servants, all 10 of his children were killed. And he lost his health. His health was compromised. His wife started to be discouraging toward him and wasn't supportive. All of Job's friends turned on him and started, you know, blaming him and saying, you know, if you're going through all these bad things, it must be your own fault. And so Job was solo. He was alone in his loss and his pain, his heartache, where everything he loved and valued was wiped away. And that often can be what it feels like when you're going through a smear campaign or a gang stalking situation, that you're all alone and nobody really understands what you're going through, and everything that matters to you, the people that you thought were your people, are wiped away and turning on you. Your stability is compromised. You know, life completely becomes desolated from what you once knew. But just as with Job, as he went through this painful journey alone, he never lost faith, he never lost hope, and he kept pressing forward and enduring well through that challenge. And in the end, everything he lost was restored to him. You know, his stability was restored. He was able to have children, more new children again. Everything was restored and then some. And I believe as we go through this painful situation that feels so isolating and alone, that if we endure it well, we carry ourselves through it well, we focus on our healing and continue to focus on self-growth and taking good care of ourselves and making good choices, that we too will have our season of restoration, that we'll have good people brought into our life, you know, and those that were in our life that have been eliminated, that have revealed themselves to never have really been in our corner anyway, that actually is a blessing. And we can have a beautiful, peaceful life restored to us as we endure well and press forward and keep going and really remember who we are, the truth of who we are, and love ourselves through the process.